Well, hello, that's me again. Today is July 12th, 2025. It is Saturday, and what you see in the beginning is yet another strike of Russian forces on all over Ukraine. In this particular case, this is the town of Chernovtsi. There is Lutsk attacked, and there is, of course, Kiev and all other places. And I decided to do kind of SitRep thing, the kind of headlines, if you wish. I do not want to use, obviously, a famous SNL weekend update thing, and Norm MacDonald not with us anymore, God bless his soul. So it makes no sense to call it this way, but let's do SitRepish type thing today. And the thing which immediately pops up for us to be very attentive to is, of course, this. Obviously the drone attacks and all that, but New York Times, New York Times, yeah, they talk about that Putin, undeterred by Trump's words, escalates his war against Ukraine. And so the New York Times, a bunch of those single-cell organisms which write this drivel, but we have to keep in mind still, no matter what I say about, or you say about New York Times, many people read it, and especially in the so-called left wing, which is not really a left wing, it's a neoliberal, fanatics, they read this crap, so, and here we have these people who use all this, semantics, which obviously is designed to convince everybody that Putin is convinced, which implies that he doesn't really know the whole situation. But the headline says that the Russian leader is convinced that Moscow battlefield superiority is growing. Well, it is growing anyway, and the Ukraine defenses may collapse in the coming months, according to people close to Kremlin. Okay, so we go and read what do they want to say in particular. So first, I want to tell you immediately that these guys, whatever that this team of the New York Times, they do not really have the real access to really people who are really close to Kremlin. They probably mostly shuffle in this basically community of the Russian pro-Western liberals who gather rumors. However, they are correct in this sense because they do reflect essentially not just their mood, but actually the cold, hard calculation by the general staff and Russia's National Security Council. So, and they talk about that the Russian leader is convinced that Russia's battlefield superiority is growing and that Ukraine's defenses may collapse in the coming months, according to the two people close to the Kremlin who insisted on anonymity to speak candidly. Well, yeah, sure. About sensitive diplomacy. Given Russia's ongoing offensive, they say Mr. Putin views it as out of the question to halt the fighting now without extensive concessions by Ukraine. Well, as many people in the West, including the Independent, for example, one other publication, which is tabloid from the United Kingdom, they say that, yeah, sure, Putin can meet with Zelensky after Ukraine capitulates. So, and then Zelensky probably will be escorted under the guard, into some kind of, prison or jail, what have you, So he is a war criminal, and that goes without saying. But this salvo 2 days ago by the New York Times, that said Russians are convinced. They're not convinced. Look at the numbers, and that's what brings me to other point. And I want to, it's almost funny, and when we talk about SitRep, you can see yourself. I'm bypassing here the talk about Mr. Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and the mess which Trump administration is, and who knows what is behind that. And again, they say there are some leased, well, probably not leased files to call it properly, and so let Trump deal with this. I don't think he can deal with this because the only thing he pursues there is his own personal interest, whatever it might be. But this whole mayhem, this whole semantic battles, verbiage, when nothing actual is being done to save the country, which is the United States, and to settle down some things which are critical for saving the United States, which is in the roughest shape in the last 10 years. I mean, last 10 years is the roughest shape. So we have those people which basically go at each other's throats, Obviously, Pambodi needs to go. She's utterly incompetent, but it's just my opinion, so you can easily discard it and don't pay attention to it. But what we have is all this verbiage, all this white noise, all those news where people go and talk about personalities, who knows who is involved with who, while in reality, when you ask about the actual policies and actions which actually solve some or resolve some issues which are critical for the United States and for the world, United States being obviously still the superpower, nothing. Nothing. It is all about media circus, and of course the cover-up, which is pretty much, I think it is cover-up of the Epstein files, or whatever the hell we can call it now nowadays. It's not least, but the collection of files. So yeah, let them have a go at it and just basically waste time and energy of our people. And again, as I already stated, semantics, constant spin, constant use of the kind of the buzzword words, constant use of the manipulative techniques. That's the only thing they can do. They cannot run a 7-Eleven store, actually, but they can do that. And so we have, oh, good Lord, so we have suddenly this thing. Yeah, look at this. The Mirror. NATO country buys Iron Dome missile defense system to send Vladimir Putin a warning. I don't know how Iron Dome, which is designed basically to cage and not very well successfully all those the plumbing tubes which are made for the sake of being Katyusha rockets, as they call it, or Hassam, whatever the name of this, and those are slow, predictable ballistic targets, and even those Iron Dome cannot intercept all of them. So how they in any way affect Vladimir Putin's behavior, or why it is a warning, I have no idea. But they need to basically constantly press this issue that Vladimir Putin somehow is cornered and is actually afraid of all that. Well, so what they do, obviously, and they continue to write this. It's Mirror, it's UK, it's tabloid. Israel has found a buyer for its famous, well, it's not really famous, it's more infamous Iron Dome missile defense system from a European country that is feeling the heat from Russia ongoing war with Ukraine. Romania has confirmed it has signed a deal with the defense manufacturer Rafael to acquire the system to protect the NATO nation from short-range missiles. Once a Soviet state, Romania never was a Soviet state. Romania was an independent country, and actually Romania under Ceausescu was a rather very unpleasant so-called ally of the Soviet Union. So, and when you read this, it's just, yeah, what do you expect? This is tabloid. However, there is a great, wonderful video from Tel Aviv, for example, which, as you can see yourself, people just merely sitting there and calculating the number of the hits, or, you know, against this wonderful one, extremely successful, as we know, yeah, 100% successful, or 100% effective, as Mr. Trump said, at Tel Aviv. Utter failure. They do not even react. They cannot intercept anything, and those are serious systems which are designed to intercept medium range ballistic missiles. Forget about Iron Dome, which is not even designed to fight this. But here we are. We live in the world shaped, semantically at least, by one cell organisms called journalists, people without you know, honor, without integrity, despite the fact that as recently we have the letter by 100 BBC journalists written about the fact that they are controlled and essentially forced to write about, well, genocide by Israel in Gaza in favor of Israel. Welcome to the real world of the Western media, my friends. So where have you been actually during the Ukrainian crisis? No, you didn't write anything about it. But now when you see the outright genocide and outright war crimes and ethnic cleansing, yeah, suddenly they recognize that they are controlled. Of course you are controlled. And some people say, yeah, obviously they have families, they have mortgages to pay and things of this nature. They have to stick to their job. You know what? At some point of time, any real man or any real human has to make this very difficult choice. You chose this profession, which is not really a profession. It's a prostitution. It's institutionalized prostitution. So you are a horse, media horse. And now when you recognize that you are part of the crimes which are committed around the world by the combined West, then suddenly you recognize that BBC is British BS corporation. This imbecile Piers Morgan, he had audacity to tell George Galloway that it's one of the most respected sources, media sources in the world. No, it is not. It is the pure stuffed with the war criminals and actually people who are okay with genocide. They are okay with the bloodshed. They are okay with women being raped, children being killed. I mean, this is who they are. Their editorial boards across the board. New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, what have you. They are criminals and creeps. And those people who didn't raise the voice about this before, so you are part of it, you participate in it, so you are the same as they are, until you have enough human dignity and integrity in you to raise the voice against what is happening, and essentially inspired by this fourth estate, fourth class of the nincompoops, cretins, basically, without any serious education, without any serious grasp of anything in the world. Look at the CNN, look at those all kinds of people, which I will demonstrate to you shortly, and you will see yourself, we are dealing with morons, apart from those morons being vile human creatures. Some of them are not even human. They have nothing human left in them. So, and I want to remind you, so as we know that Vladimir Putin is scared crapless of this Iron Dome, I'm being facetious, of course. Remember this imbecile? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, remember, I will, look at this. British-made tanks are about to sweep Putin's conscripts aside. It was 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, and his former tank commander, his former tank commander who never saw any real war. And basically, as I already stated, most of the British United Kingdom army officers are not qualified to actually command anything under real conditions. So suddenly we have actually the Telegraph now, and this imbecile continues to write all kinds of nonsense. Look at this. Hamish the Breton Gordon. Desperate Putin might resort to nukes. Oh, God, here we go again. Again, the nukes. There is fear in his heart, and a tactical nuclear exchange would now leave the Russian army as shattered as the Ukrainian one. So this is the guy who is essentially, I believe, they train clowns in the, whatever the name of the Sandhurst and those King's College and General Staff College in UK, because this is the guy who writes nonsense, which is, I mean, kindergarten children probably will understand war better than this so-called tank commander. And so he continues to spread this garbage, and this is not even the level of journalism, even the worst one. This is the level of the county newspaper, which actually gathers rumors. It is exactly what it is, tabloid. But look at the team of the Telegraph, especially those who write about Ukraine. Here we are. Look at this. Oh, yeah, they're the creator of the podcast. This is podcast they do on the Telegraph. Dominique Nichols, Dobby's associate editor, defense at the Telegraph, having joined in 2018. He previously served for 23 years in the British Army in tank and helicopter units. Oh, that is very strange, how you can go from the tank to helicopter units. But okay, he had operational deployments in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Northern Ireland. Well, yeah, sure. None of those actually experiences have anything to do with the real war. Those are police operations. And so this Dominique Nichols, I would love to talk to him if he will have enough guts to communicate with me. But yeah, he has no clue what he is talking about in terms especially Ukrainian special military operation. But yeah, this is the type of people. 23 years. Who was he? Where did he graduate from? What is his academic military background? What did he study? So, but yeah, there you go. Then, of course, we have the Francis as executive executive editor. So, and he studied history at Cambridge. So yeah, that's pretty much disqualifies them from anything. And yeah, then there is Adil Pozman-Pontey. Oh, good Lord, I hope she is producer and the creator of narratives. Yeah, that's the only thing they can do, create narratives. And that goes not only for the journalists, that goes also directly to the Western militaries, which are utterly humiliated, and they have a very acute case of the professional envy and jealousy. But so much so that we actually reach the levels of the complete grotesque, if you wish, in terms of those so-called military professionals doing something, very special about NATO and about European Union and about the whole Western civilization. And again, I want to provide a disclaimer here because I'm Western man myself, so, and seeing what Western civilization has become is obviously hurting me, but we have to go with the facts. And here we are. This is our SitRep. And my God. So we have now that French. It's machine translation. Yesterday, for General Staff Burkhardt, I believe he is not Burkhardt, he is some kind of the pronunciation in purely French, but it's machine translation, so you will forgive me. Russia has designated France as its first adversary in Europe. First adversary obviously is a little bit, again, machine translation issue, because actually what he means, the main adversary in Europe. So this is the chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. Lilliputian as they are, pathetic as the French armed forces are, these guys, they still for some reason believe that Russians really care about designating France as its main enemy. Well, the problem is the whole combined West is the main enemy, and the only reason that France is can interest Russian, especially Russian military professional, is because it still retains 4 Lettering Fund class strategic missile submarines, which carry the, however small but nonetheless nuclear deterrent of France. And obviously, considering the ethnic and cultural dynamics in France, which probably will cease to exist as the unified state by 2050, I could be wrong. It could be 2060, or maybe it will happen earlier. So when we talk about France, this is not stable country in reality, and there were some voices suppressed immediately by military and intelligence professionals who are talking about that France is on the verge. And again, can you imagine those cuckolds from Paris defending their wives and families when they don't have weapons? Well, basically all those culturally enriching people from all kinds of the African continent, and very many with the radical Islam, they have weapons. Many of those weapons streamed to France from a zone of the special military operation, from Ukraine, which France supports. That's the only reason Russians are interested in France in any way. The rest of it, it's all overpriced, overrated crap. And so here we have the chief of general staff that says that factual and without emphasis, almost surgical, the chief of staff of the armed forces, General Thierry Burkhardt, complied on Friday with the request of the head of the state, Emmanuel Macron, submitted to him only a few days ago, to draw up a complete, lucid panorama of the threats weighing on France and Europe nearly 3.5 years after the start of the war in Ukraine. As many military professionals from NATO, and you know them, including Colonel Jacques Beau, one of them, and American military professionals who are real professionals, constantly stress NATO is not capable of producing serious strategic forecast. And those guys, these are political ass lickers and ass kissers who only do this for the political reasons, while their country is burning and France is done, essentially. You cannot change the dynamics. So he talks about, I don't know why it's translated like this from French, we should not expect a return to visible horizon, whatever that means. He said at the beginning of his press conference, we must prepare to manage the world as it is today. And here's the problem, our French friends. You don't know what the world is today, as it is today, because you do not have professionals working across the board, from intelligence to military, who can have a grasp of anything, let alone deliver this to this teller boy Macron, who won't understand the first thing about military. And so we continue basically with this dude from France, that Russia has designated France as its, well, not first, main adversary in Europe. No, she didn't. But okay, they want to feel important, which they are not. He wants explicitity. Moscow is waging a hybrid war against the West, made up of disinformation and cyber attacks, actions in space and under the sea. Russia is the nuclear and conventional military power. Yeah, hello, we know that. He continued. It has all the attributes of the totalitarian state. A centralized decision-making capacity, a conditioning of the population, he added. For Europe and France, it is a lasting threat that is close and dimensional. By 2030, it will constitute a real threat to our borders. So the guy is moron, which you would expect from French military, at least most of them. And yeah, if he thinks that Russia somehow wants to invade this stinky country now with they probably have to invest more in the, counterintelligence, proper police force, which can control their actually bounty use and actually clean the trash from and rats from Paris, maybe clean Seine, and maybe, deal with the urine smell, which spreads over those great, architectural things. So I want to remind you, everybody, and this is not to say that there are no good French people. There are, absolutely. And there are people who have honor, but for the most part, France as a country and the way it existed today, you voted with a landslide for the so-called president, the boy with married to who knows what. You voted for this and enjoy it. And when you look at the French military, what the hell are you talking about? They barely can take off something like on the order, probably 65, 70 Rafale fighter planes. They have probably one of the Letron submarines on the combat patrol, each carrying 16 intercontinental ballistic missile. But other than that, army of France is pathetic. It's probably, it's slightly better than Bundeswehr. So anybody who thinks that Russians for some reason need to go and invade Paris or invade, close to the borders of France, what for? To what? Steal this overpriced junk from Louis Vuitton? I'm sorry, guys. I mean, you really are living in the 20th century. Russians, except for the, those cultural riffraff, for all those, overpriced garbage, which goes as the elite, which it is not, products to, for the conspicuous consumption and virtue signaling and wealth signaling. But other than that, to do what? With France, to get this bunch of freeloaders who cannot even control their own population, in the sense that it's, did you see the wonderful celebration after the PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, won the Champions League? That's what is coming. Remember Dijon? That's the first demonstration to you what happens when those, radical Islamists, those Arabs, those Africans, those people who, for some reason, they think that they are French, they are not, they are there to get their welfare, checks, so to speak. When they will get the weapons, which are already there, they were streaming into Europe from the front lines in Ukraine, former Ukraine. And so as the result, this is the start. And as Russian parliamentarians from the European Parliament, which is absolutely useless organization, say that, we talked to those people, in European Parliament, from France, from Italy, from Germany, and they say to them, guys, look at this, look what happens in your countries, can you... And, you know what, those people say, oh, we don't worry, we have enough dogs and police to, basically shut it down. But yeah, that's so. Speaking from French general, listening and hearing about the Russia being the totalitarian state. It is 1984. But France's path is only this. I want to remind France's history of the 20th century, a defeated, humiliated power, and it is the 29th bulletin. Of course, you remember this. This is the bulletin by Napoleon after he really ran away from Russia in 1812. And here, for the first time, all those, inspired and proud French and the Europe suddenly recognized the scale of catastrophe in Russia by this bulletin. This is when he begins to talk about 30,000 horses killed, hundreds of thousands of troops killed. Well, guess what? It is also the start of this famous myth, which is, of course, French being French. They cannot admit that they had their ass handed there, primarily through the combat conditions. But, of course, Napoleon said, oh, it was Mr. Frost who defeated me. Well, that's Napoleon, you know, so, and obviously the frost didn't work for some reason, you know, when Russians entered Paris in 1814, but this is France. It is the reason they have their, actually, National Football Association of France has a cock, you know, as the rooster, you know, that's pretty much their emblem. And this, in many respects, actually represents the whole spectrum of the desperation, envy, and total delusion about all those nincompoops in Chihuahua countries like France. As I already stated, I state this non-stop. Remove all those, whatever remaining, well, there are only 4 actually, Letron-Farm submarines from France, what it is. Military midget, economically, I mean, just disintegrating piece of crap, producing piece of crap. They have, you know, Mr. Arnaud, the guy who produced this overpriced crap, from the overrated champagne to garbage like Louis Vuitton. That's pretty much it. Yeah, Airbus, okay, Saint-Nazaire, shipbuilding capacity. That's about it. After that, French cars, we don't want to go there, okay? I mean, there are reasons. They're not they haven't been successful in the United States. And Americans know a thing or two about cars, you know. So, and this is what we have in terms of basically mood, so to speak, in the West. And to kind of sum it up a little bit, good Lord, we have Berliner Zeitung, and we have the former Günther Verheugen, former commissioner, European commissioner, Günther Verheugen. He talks about on this gathering of those fanatics from Europe about the Ukraine Reconstruction Conference. This is hypocrisy. And he talks about that this bunch of the morons who are absolutely whipped into this anti-Russian craze, they believe that they can restore, Ukraine. I'm telling you, we're talking about paupers. Europe is becoming a pauper. So the only thing they can do is print a little bit of the euros. But other than that, they are being whipped constantly by the United States into this frenzy. And they still really believe that at some point of time, they need to go and fight Russia, because they will create concentration camp in Europe. Europeans, this is for you. You, all those Spaniards, Italians, Belgians, French, Germans, and what have you, especially Germans. They will create a concentration camp where you will have thought control. Oh, it's already happening, yes. You will lose all your civil rights, and you will be marched as the essentially zombies and kamikaze. In those rank and file, you will be actually drafted to fight those damn Ruskies. Because this is the only way that your elite, so to speak, which is dumb as stump, can survive. And guess what? After that, Russia will turn all of you into the parking lot. Because obviously, they are all cretins, basically, all of them from the European Parliament, and they are wild people, they are criminals. So, and Europe, you wanted it, so enjoy. And United States obviously will profit from it greatly. Selling you junk, which is not going to work, and that is why you're going to be annihilated first conventionally, and then if Russians get tired of killing you, they will simply turn Paris and Berlin once and for all, maybe London, into the parking lots. And that will be it. The United States will get it too, but it's a whole other story. And when even former commissioner says, well, they all suddenly get wise when they retire, that, yeah, it's all hypocrisy. As Mr. Lavrov stated, it's all those, 50,000 corps which gonna invade Russia and all that, it's all, he has correctly stated, simulacra. What is simulacra? Well, simulacrum is a reference to something which doesn't exist. And simulacrum in this particular case is somehow that France or Germany can create some kind of weapon system. They can produce them in numbers ready to fight Russians. Well, I have news for you. You don't have it. You don't have industry. You don't have R&D, which can even go to, close the gap a little bit of the incredible loss in the arms race. But Russians obviously take something seriously. But believe me, the most important thing today is Russian population. This is the thing which have been lost by you. A Russian population, in overwhelming majority of it, it hates the West. It abhors it. There's no anymore this adoration of French culture. None. They don't like Germans. They don't like British. And we're talking about primarily on the top political level. But in terms of France, yeah, Russians know French are cocky. And the cock is on their emblem at the national team, which is, I don't know how many real French in it anymore, anyhow. So, and the question is that in the end, when people say that what is happening in Ukraine, well, a lot is happening in Ukraine. Chernovtsi is burning, Lutsk is burning. But look at this. We have this state. Take it any way you want it. This is from yesterday. Thus, Kyiv Special Services, Ukrainian Special Services, intelligence services, are ready to transfer to Russia intelligence the coordinates of the position of the 143rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, or MBR, of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in order to organize provocation inside their country. This was told to us by the Russian Security Service. According to the agency interlocutor, the command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine actually abandoned the 143rd Mechanized Brigade in the Veliki Burluk direction in the Kharkov region. The Special Services actually, for some reason, want to give these coordinates for Russians to finish off this brigade. And you know what? Take it any way you want, but it's actually, these are indicators of what is happening on the front line. And if you do not believe me, look at this. This is the video of mothers of the 61st Separate Motor Armor Brigade of Ukraine. And it's the wall of the EMIAs missing in action, which is the euphemism for them being killed. And of course, their corpses never collected from the battlefield. And as such, they are presented as the MIAs. And this is in order not to pay all those necessary benefits for their parents and their wives and what have you. As you can see yourself, it's rather extensive for the single brigade, which essentially doesn't exist anymore in reality. And when you look at those maps, keep in mind that, Russians are not in rush. They but as I already stated, I don't want to elaborate on this today because it's kind of SitRep-ish. But this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. That will help me to keep me in this business. So, guys, have a nice weekend. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.